What's happening, everyone? In this video, we're going to look at motifs and how these can be very effective building blocks when it comes to creating full melodies. So I have 4 motifs in front of me here. I wanted to focus on a few of them instead of just showing you one way of creating a motif or one way of turning it into a melody. I want to show you a diversity of ways and techniques that you can use to create effective melodies from even the simplest of motifs. So let's quickly just dive into each one of them and have a look at what they sound like. Alright, so the first one is basically as simple as it gets. It's basically just a major 5th jump to the 4th and back up to the 5th. So this one is very open, and by that I mean that it's focusing on perfect intervals, which means it doesn't really say if it's major or minor, so it works with both. And this gives you a lot of options when it comes to the harmony as well, because these open interval motifs really work with most chords in the whole scale. And so on. So that's something to note when it comes to perfect interval motifs. They're very neutral and open. Now the next one I got here sounds like this. That's also very straightforward. What's interesting about this is that it's not featuring any interval as directly as the first one. It's rather a stepwise motion up the scale and then a little jump down. Kind of the opposite of this one, in a sense. Now, what's interesting about this one, though, and kind of what I based it on, is the major 7th interval. This interval has a lot of tension because it is naturally leading up to the C. So that's why I wanted to start on it, because it starts a melody in a quite interesting place, and then we can resolve the tension later in the melody. So that's a different way to write a motif as well. Now these are all quite, slow and simple ones, so I wanted to create one that's a bit faster. That sounds like this. Now that one is quite obviously in the key of A minor. Outlining the beginning of the A minor scale. And obviously this one is a little bit faster as well, which is going to give us a different kind of character and emotion in the melody we're going to be using it in. Now there's not really that much to be said about this melody except for those 2 things. This one starts outlining the A minor scale and then jumping down to the C right here. Now I've taken all these motifs and actually just quickly mapped them out with just some strings and woodwinds just to give you a little feel of what they might sound like. And this is really rough, so don't really pay too much attention to the mock-up of it. And as you see, I did that to the other motifs as well. Let's give it a quick listen. Alright, let's move back to the piano. Another thing that you can note is that I'm only using white keys for this, so all the motifs are going to be either in C major or A minor. So it's all going to be only white keys, just for simplicity's sake right now. Alright, so we've looked at these 3 motifs so far. They're all a bit different and they're all quite simple. Now let's look at the last one here. This one is going to be a little bit different because while these ones are in 4/4, this one is going to be in 6/4. Let's listen to it with a click on just so you get a feel for the rhythm. Also, this one is very simple, based on the C major scale. then going down to the A. And I just made one in 6/4 just to kind of get a bit more of a diversity in these motifs so they don't all end up sounding the same. It's just to give you a little bit more of a picture of different ways to write melodies and different techniques that you can utilize. Let's listen to that in the little sketch zone I made right here as well. And something you can do when you're writing these motifs is to play around with some chords as well. I just got some CSS strings here that I use sometimes to kind of get a feel for how things might sound together with chords. But again, I don't want to focus too much on harmony right now just to make this confusing, but I'm just going to show you an example of what I mean. Playing around with the chords can give you a bit more of a feel for what this motif might sound like when it's arranged. And it can give you more inspiration and kind of make you maybe do little tweaks to some of the notes to fit something you have in your mind in terms of the harmony. But if that is too confusing for you, I don't want you to worry too much about it now. What we're going to focus the most on is the actual motifs. And all these motifs are going to turn into quite beautiful melodies in the end. So I just want to show you how these simple little things can turn into full compositions using the techniques I'm going to show you. Alright, so that's the basics of these motifs. Now what I want to show you is that I want to go back to the piano, just for simplicity's sake, and show you how these motifs can be building blocks, which is something we're going to be discussing more in the next video, but I just want to show you two different kind of characteristics that every motif have. So this one, if you listen to it, so this one has a melodic and a rhythmic aspect of it. So the rhythmic one is that it's a long, short, long note. And that means that if you even play a different motif that has the same rhythm, it's going to sound similar. And it's going to make your piece sound more cohesive, even if you're making contrasting themes and stuff. So the motif goes like this. But even if you're moving this around, or it's going to sound like it's a part of the same melody because you're using the same rhythm as this motif. In the same way, if you're only utilizing the melodic steps, which is a root, fifth, fourth, fifth, you can do that anywhere and it's going to sound like a piece of the same theme. Even if you play it slower, or fast. Oops. And so on. So every motif has a rhythmic and a melodic aspect of it. Also, let's listen to this one. So the rhythm of it is basically so whatever you kind of play that has that rhythm is going to sound like it's a part of the same piece. And so on. Which is going to be helpful when it comes to creating contrasting themes and elements based on your main motif. We're not going to dive too much into this as it's something we're going to cover later. I just want you to start thinking about this already. In the same way as that the melodic aspect of it can be moved around to different keys as well. Oh. and so on. So you can move it around the scale and it's still going to sound like the same piece of music, or that it belongs together. And this is also one of the nice things about motifs, is that they're going to be building blocks that's going to help you later when it comes to writing your melodies. And also you can use different fragments of these, only this part. So maybe you start with that and then you bring in the full melody later. Right, one final thing I want to note about these motifs is the simplicity of them, and also just quickly noting the shapes and the contours of them as well. So first of all, you can see all these motifs are very simple. They have, this one has 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes on this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes on this one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes on that. So they all have between 4 and 8 notes in each motif. There are no limits, but I think as a beginner, you kind of want to keep yourself under 10 notes in a motif. And another thing to note is the range of these things. This one is ranging a perfect fifth. This one, also a perfect fifth, from the lowest note to the highest. This one is a perfect octave. And this one is a minor 7th, because this would be the octave. So all of these motifs are also less than an octave in the kind of range they play in. So we have less than 8 notes in all of them, and also less than an octave. And I really recommend kind of, condensing these motifs so they're as minimal and simple as possible, because the more focused they are, the easier it's going to, take different parts of them and play with them when you're structuring them into melodies. Having these motifs are going to be very valuable when it comes to writing your melodies. It's going to give you lots of tools and things to play with, and they can be extremely effective ways to go about it. Instead of just having to come up with a whole melody at once, you can come up with one or several, like here, motifs, and then turn those into full melodies with the examples and techniques that I'm going to show you in the next video. Let's get into that.